Good morning, honorable members and those under the sound of my voice. In our Moments of Impact devotional segment, I'll be sharing a devotional today entitled A Call to Action. This past weekend, we witnessed one of the most heinous and gruesome crimes in our nation's history. A young man was gunned down in the front of his daughter and was left to die mercilessly. It's really sad to see what has become of our beloved nation and the blatant disregard for human life. I'm sure every right-thinking citizen of this great nation would agree this reprehensible act should be condemned in the highest order. While we boast about so many great things that are happening in our country, and for those we are extremely grateful, let us not be blindsided by the realities of the pain so many face on a day-to-day basis because of crime and violence. In this call to action, today, I make an impassioned plea to our government, law enforcement agencies, the church, of which I proudly represent, educational institutions, civic organizations, and stakeholders to do more to mitigate this vexing crime wave in our country. I believe if we come together as a united front, we can win this war. If we as a people become less concerned about selfish gain and aggrandizement, we can win this war. If we put aside our political differences and work together, we can win this war. The Bible is clear. A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. If we revamp our laws and establish harsher penalties that appropriately fits the crime committed, we can win this war. If we enact swifter judgments on convicted criminals, we can win this war. If we root out corruption from all tiers of leadership in our country, we can win this war. If we all return to biblical values of fearing God, loving our neighbor as we love ourselves, training up a child in the way they should go, forgiving those who have wronged us, and being kind to one another, we can win this war. In conclusion, let's all declare a war on this crime wave in our nation. Let's not wait for it to hit our doorsteps before we declare war. Let's work together to take this nation back from the criminals. Let's all come together as a nation, according to Isaiah chapter 55, verse 12, and rebuild the ancient ruins, raise up the old age foundations, repair the breach, and restore the streets to dwell in. Selah. Think and act on these things. Let us pray. Our gracious and loving Father, we pause today to acknowledge your sovereignty, for you are great and you are mighty. You said in your word, ask and it shall be given. Seek and we shall find. Knock and the door shall be open. And so, Father, today we've come to do just that. We pray for our great nation that is in desperate need of divine intervention. We pray, Almighty God, that you would turn the hearts of our people back towards you. Oh Lord, you are all powerful and there's nothing you can't do. Help us as a nation to return to biblical values of love, peace, forgiveness, and reconciliation. We pray that good will prevail over evil. Oh Lord, we ask you today to reveal your great power in this nation. And finally, Lord, we pray for our political leaders. And we ask for you to give them courage and wisdom to navigate this nation through these very difficult times. We pray, Almighty God, for the proceedings of this House. May they be carried out today in decency and in order. And Father, let your perfect will be done in our nation. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. And everyone say, amen. Let us repeat the Lord's Prayer. Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Fred Mitchell, Glenda Santa Martin, Alfred Sayers, Dr. Michael Darville, Clay Sweeting, Keith Bell, Wayne Monroe, Warren Miller, Jobeth Colby Davis, Ginger Moxie, Mario Bolag, Jomo Campbell, Basil McIntosh, Miles LaRoda, Pia Glover Roll, Lisa Ramming, Zane Lightbourne, Dr. Hubert Minnis, Jamal Strawn, John Pinder, Marcus Roll, Leon Lundy, Kirk Cornish, Wade Watson, Leonardo Lightbourne, Leslie Miller Bryce, Leroy Major, Sylvanus Petty, Michael Bonnaby, Michael Pintard, James Kwesi Thompson, R.M. Lewis, Shannon Don Cartwright, Adrian Gibson, Adrian White, Kingsley Smith.
Good morning, honorable members. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would wish to move for a slight adjustment in the order of business for communications to come before tabling of documents.
Thank you, honorable member. Is there a seconder?
Otherwise remain the same.
It's been moved and seconded that we would change the order of the agenda. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Anne's.
The opposition doesn't object, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, honorable member. Okay. Huh? Okay. Communications. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Rumkey, Kid Island, and San Salvador. Yeah. Communications by the Speaker. Introduction and swearing in of new members. Laying of documents by ministers. Yeah. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, before we proceed further, I notice that there are some. Yeah, that's good. That there are some guests in the gallery that you may wish to address.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Barnabas. Oh. The chair recognizes the honorable member for The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. We're honored to have in the gallery, on a special occasion, the amazing students of St. Augustine's College. But there's one far more qualified than me to address them, and he constantly reminds us that there are only two sets of people in the world, and he'll tell us about them. So I defer to...
The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I thank the honorable member for Marco City, the leader of the opposition, for yielding, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, as the member for Marco City said so rightly, that there's a saying in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas that there are those that went to SAC, and there are those that want to go to SAC. It is a pleasure to stand here this morning with extreme pride, Mr. Deputy, to acknowledge these 12th grade students from St. Augustine's College, my alma mater. St. Augustine's is celebrating 80 years, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and the legacy of St. Augustine's College over the last 80 years has been one of a legacy of position, Mr. Deputy. So from 1945 to present day, the teachers, the students, the staff of St. Augustine's College has been contributing to the development of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, not just in athletic prowess, but also academic excellence, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy, one of the great traditions and legacy of St. Augustine's College is the fact that a great number of families, Bahamian families, have all come through St. Augustine's College. I can't help but acknowledge Mr. Deputy, Mrs. Griffin, who taught my daughters at St. Augustine's College, and a cousin of mine. We are two sisters' children, as they say, Mr. Zion Cox, his mother and my mother are sisters. And in fact, Mr. Deputy, since I left St. Augustine's in 1993, we've had 25 family members that have graduated from St. Augustine's College, Mr. Deputy. Absolutely. And of course, even in this place, Mr. Deputy, we have a number of members, parliamentary members, the member for Fox Hill, the member for Fort Charlotte, and of course, the member for Seabreeze, and I see in the gallery Senator Helkitis, who also graduated from St. Augustine's College, and also the member for Kalani, who's not here, former Prime Minister, and also, Mr. Deputy, while I'm on my feet, to recognize the nephew of Madam Speaker, Mr. Taran Nordage, who is also a member of this class, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, we have institutions in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas that continues to ensure that we produce some of the best and brightest that we have to offer. It is said, too, though in a humorous way, but in a substantive way, Mr. Deputy, that if the Prime Minister were to give a proclamation and say that all St. Augustine students not go to work today, that the country would be shut down. And so we are very, 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 very proud, Mr. Deputy, of the legacy of St. Augustine's College, all it has meant to the development of education in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, all that it has meant, Mr. Deputy, to athletic excellence, Mr. Deputy. One Shawnee Miller-Weebu is a graduate of St. Augustine's College. And of course, Mr. Deputy, we could be here all day with a long list of athletes, long list of nation builders who went to that great institution over the hill in Fox Hill, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, so it's a great pleasure for me to stand to congratulate St. Augustine's College on 80 years, but in particular, this class is a part of the class of 2025, and to say to you that your legacy that you will build now is anchored by the legacy of St. Augustine's College, and that you will be able to achieve anything in this life, particularly change and transform the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, because of what and how you've been cultivated at St. Augustine's College. And just always remember that you can achieve anything in this life because of what you've garnered at that great institution, Almighty God, and your parents. Mr. Deputy, it is a pleasure and an honor to salute this class in St. Augustine's College on 80 years in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Thank you very much.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Fox Hill.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. St. Augustine's College is in Fox Hill, and I happen to have also gone to school there. Graduated in 1970. When I graduated in 1970, it capped 5 of the fondest and greatest years of my life. And I walked out of St. Augustine's in 1970 wanting to do nothing other than what you see me doing now. And I am always grateful for the education which the monks gave us, a liberal education that teaches values of tolerance for all people. And I hope that that's still the lesson which you learned today. In and around the Michaelmas term of 1965, I was a student at what is now Palmdale Primary, called then Easton Junior. And a man named Dawson Conliffe was the headmaster. He and I were very close friends, even though I was 11 or 12 years old.
Conliffe was still there then.
Yeah. And one day he came to me and said, took me out of class, which he often did, just to talk. But he said, we're driving up to St. Augustine's College. He had what was then called a Chevy 2, which I thought was the snazziest car you could have in those days. And we drove up to St. Augustine's College. The college was still housed in the units built by Jerome Hawes at the top of the hill where the monastery was. And he asked me to take the applications for the students from Eastern Junior who wanted to take the exam to get into St. Augustine's College. So he sat in the car, he gave me the papers, I walked into the offices and went into an office, and the back of a very tall black man who was a monk was turned to me. And he turned around when I entered the room and introduced himself. His name was Father Bonaventure Dean. He was then the Dean of Discipline of St. Augustine's College. And we had an interaction. I handed him the papers. And I guess you say the rest is history, because today his daughter, Jerusha, is actually the Director General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. His wife, Anne, used to be my English teacher during all the years I was at St. Augustine's, and my love for literature came during that experience. I remember when we decided, my parents wanted me to go to the government high school, but the Catholic Church made it possible for me to go by saying, you've got a scholarship to come and you don't have to pay a penny. So that fixed that. And I went there, and I remember sitting with a man named Robert Cartwright. The school had just moved in the premises below. And we sat there as 11 and 12-year-olds and said, imagine we're going to be in this place for 5 years. That seemed like the longest period in the world. I can't believe that in the year 2025, it's now been 50-plus years since I actually left the institution. And you say to yourself, where did the time go? There's a reason why I'm proud to have you here today. Because in 1969, the Toastmasters had just been formed by men like Pedro Roberts Sr. and Alfred Maycock, former minister, and Peter Drudge, who was a former consul general in Miami. They had a speech contest every year, beginning with that year. And I said Pedro Roberts Sr., yeah. And at the end of the speech contest, at the presentations for the speech contest, there was Lyndon Pindling, who was the prime minister, came to see the speech finals and to give an address. And afterwards, he invited all of us who were in the speech contest to come to the House of Assembly as his guests, and after the break, to take us all to lunch. Can't say I can repeat that, but. He took us to lunch in what was then the British Colonial, still is the British Colonial, right down the road here. And he spent lunchtime talking to us about the future. And many of us were, again, inspired to public service by that simple act and interaction. So this morning, in repeating this exercise, as I said to the press outside, you've met in one fell swoop, as they say in America, all the leaders of your country, with the exception of the Governor General. You met the Prime Minister, you met the Leader of the Opposition, you've seen all the members of Parliament, you've met the Minister of Education. And we are doing all of this so you can take our places. That's the deal. And so I hope that this morning you'll be inspired by what you hear. Now, there was a man who was the former Speaker, now passed away, of the House of Representatives in Australia. He came here in 1975 to a CPA conference, and he said, that one of the questions he was often asked as Speaker was, why was the House of Representatives so unruly? That, people wouldn't wait to hear other people finish their speeches. They would interrupt and they would say, and he would say, look, this is not a classroom. This is the High Court of Parliament. And this is the freest forum in the country. So here you get to say, without fear or favor, let or hindrance, words which you can express about what you feel and all the actions you think ought to be taken on behalf of the country. Once we're not taking out guns and shooting one another, no issue. It's words. This is parliament, comes from the French word parler, to talk, to speak. So that's the lesson I hope you abstract from this visit this morning. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm deeply grateful to be able to say these few words to welcome the classes of 10th, 11th, and 12th grade this morning. They came up, some of them came to the Fox Hill Community Center and served breakfast to the residents of Fox Hill, for which I'm deeply grateful. And that was to teach students the idea of service. I want to welcome in particular the president of the Student Council, and I mentioned him, Mr. Dante Butler, who's there at the back row with the glasses. I was elected president of the Student Council, again, more than 50 years ago, so I used to look like that. And to welcome ASP Jermaine Adderley from the Urban Renewal in Fox Hill, who coordinated the visit, and Mrs. Michelle Griffin, who is the teacher and advisor, I would suppose, of the students, their chaperone, I think is the correct word, this morning. So welcome. I hope it's an illuminating experience. 50 years from now, I hope you remember the day you came here and saw how the House of Assembly works up close and personal. I thank you for allowing me this opportunity, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and thank the students for accommodating my invitation. And I guess we'll speak to you afterwards, myself, and we can probably treat them to lunch at some point. Good idea. Yeah? Touche. Except I was talking about personal resources, and I know you far richer than me. But at some point, we'd like to have some kind of social event to follow up on this. So congratulations on the 80 years of St. Augustine's as an institution. As I say, the finest 5 years, some of the finest 5 years that I've in my entire life, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Mr. Butler, I think they wanted you to stand so they can see who you are. Yes. So the Prime Minister just reminded me, it's the 80th year of the school. And you know, Bradley Roberts, who's our former chairman and Minister of Works, he was also a student. I think he actually joined the school in 1945. So it's a long time ago, but he's passed on. So grateful to see you all. Please enjoy the morning. Thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I don't rise on that issue, as I'm one of the people who would be at work if the Prime Minister called, given that proclamation. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, although Kelly Ingram never inhabited this place, her father did. I had the great pleasure of working with her and sitting next to her on the Bahamas Bar Council. And I found her to be a quite agreeable young lawyer, even when we were disagreeing on politics and other matters. But as her father, Mr. Deputy Speaker, served this country in this place and as Prime Minister, we think it's appropriate that the record of the House do mark condolences being conveyed to him.
Thank you, honorable member. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Marco City. just want to. Okay. Yeah. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Yes. Fix your mic, please. Your mic. Put your mic up. Your mic. Thanks.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I know how the family would feel. I don't know that they would have, they have been, the event of the passing of Kelly Ingram, the daughter of our former Prime Minister, Hubert Ingram, and Dolores Velma. It's been a shock to all of us, particularly those of us who were very close to that family. I would have known Kelly from she was born. I would have seen her during her years. She did not go to St. Augustine's. She's not a big red machine. She went to St. Andrews, and I would have witnessed her sojourn through educational advancement. She was very close to my children, and to this date continued to be very close to myself and my children. Of course, many would know that our father and I were law partners for many, many years. We started together. Firstly, met as article law clerks when he was at the firm of McKinney, Bancroft and Hughes, and I at the firm of Wallace Whitfield and Barnwell. At that time, he had been very advanced in his studies. I had started in 1969, October, and he had been in the program several years before that. Got to know him a bit better when Sir Cecil Wallace Whitfield was the Minister of Education. And the University of the West Indies had decided that they needed to establish the Faculty of Law. And the idea was to start that the Bahamas would house that faculty, because we did not have any campus of UWI here, and that was the burning desire to have that faculty here. In his haste, and waiting for the paperwork to catch up and everything to happen, Sir Cecil recruited a gentleman by the name of Nicholas Liverpool, who was then the Dean of the Faculty of Law in Hull University. He hailed from Dominica, eventually became the president of Dominica, and he came to be the first dean of the Faculty of Law of the UWI, and was supposed to be set up here. And he came because we had the system of articleship, and there were at least 40 active article law students in the system. And he thought that the 40 would be the first class of the Faculty of Law. And we used to hold class, and he came and started classes right through where the Methodist complex was on Charlotte Street upstairs, and we started being lectured. It took lectured for about a year. Of course, politics got in the way, and eventually the faculty was set up in Cave Hill in Barbados. But that's where Ingram and I met. I was a whippersnapper, as they said, just 17, 18. And he was 4 or 5 years older than I. So he was my big brother. And he lived not too far from where I lived at that time, off Mackey Street. So the alley name escapes me now, and I was in Roll Avenue. And so very often he had this little white Triumph. And we'd pick up and we'd go do what boys do very often. And of course, we got married to Dolores Miller, as she then was. Well, we knew her as Velma. So, at that time, I knew her as Velma Miller. I only discovered the Dolores after Ingram met her, because she went to St. John's and was about 2 or 3 forms ahead of me. So I knew her from St. John's College. That's the Jolly Green Giant. And of course, their marriage flourished and they had their kids. And as I said, what do you say to a parent? You never expect that your child would be leaving you before you. That's the way it fares of any parent. And so words and what could I say to comfort? We all in here would have experienced death of one kind or the other. My parents have passed. That was painful. And as inevitable as death is, the grief that accompanies it, the pain that accompanies it, is always it's inexplicable. We know that death is coming. We see our parents and loved ones as we're on that path to death, being laid out in bed or something. But yet when it happens, the grief and the pain. But as I said, what could we say to a parent? I've never experienced. I had siblings. I had 2 brothers who've passed. I had my mother and father who've passed, cousins, aunt, and the pain always seemed to be different. I can't imagine the pain that Prime Minister Ingram and Dolores are bearing right now. But I think those of us who love them and who they love, once we express our own love for them and let them know that we're here to share in their burden and their grief, it might, as it were, lift their burden and help to wear their grief. And as I said, I don't have the words to say to them not to grieve or not to cry or not to. But all I can say is that they should be comforted by the fact that many of us who love them share their grief and do find some solace in that fact. And also remember that let us not lean on our understanding. I mean, why Kelly? Young, full of life, vibrant, such a future be ahead of her. And I know that my children continues to grieve as I speak. Daughter just left here, and before she left, she came to see me, and she explained what she thought. And she left grieving. And as she boarded that plane and it took off, the message came that Kelly passed. Wish that she rest in peace. I wish that the our Lord of grace, who will comfort Hubert and Dolores in their hour of grief. And I just admonish that we should thank him for allowing us to be a part of the journey of Kelly as she transitioned into the other life. And Lord, let us take comfort in our Christian belief that she is in a better place and that we will see her again as long as we believe and understand that death is part of life. I don't know of anyone who has outlived life. So life lives on. And as life lives on, so would the memories that we have of Kelly lives on in our life. And so she continues to live, because we have bank memories with her, and we'll continue to remember her. My sincere condolences to the family, the siblings, and all. May her soul rest in peace, and she rise in glory until we all meet again.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And want to thank the government for carving out a place in our agenda for this tribute for all of us. My family and I were deeply saddened when we learned about the unexpected passing of attorney Kelly K.A. Ingram. For all of us, this is a profound tragedy. And my heart goes out to her parents, former Prime Minister Hubert Ingram and Mrs. Dolores Ingram, and to all of her extended family and persons who knew her and loved her. Kelly, I believe those of us who have had any interaction would agree, was a shining star in her private life, but certainly in her field, an emerging force whose impact was already being felt and whose potential was limitless. The Bahamas has lost a brilliant and dedicated professional and a loyal family member and friend. Kelly had an amazing sense of humor. And even though she was embedded in a very powerful family, a family that helped to shape the modern Bahamas, she was grounded and humble, never seeking to exploit the access she had in so many ways. I'm advised she enjoyed being an auntie. And though her family was successful and prominent, and she could easily ride that track record, Kelly was known to be set on carving out her own special path and establishing her own identity. If you ask some of her friends, they would say she was bold and expressive. And much like her father, and in a very quiet way like her mother, she spoke her mind. You didn't have to guess what she was thinking. I'm not a pet person, but she loved pets, cats in particular. Her friends would tell you she was loyal. Even when some others weren't, she was loyal. And as the Prime Minister expressed his closeness, all of us, certainly in the Free National Movement who knew her, even tangentially, knew that she was not tribalistic in her politics. She had friends and persons who she held dear on both sides of the political divide. And several of us in here whose children know each other, you've told the story about when parents have funny exchanges, whether it's in Parliament or otherwise, how the children check their parents when they get home. No doubt the Prime Minister and our former Prime Minister found themselves in a similar position. Her legal colleagues regarded her as being fair, measured, and reasonable. And as hinted earlier, she was a force at the Bar Council and was committed to the modernization of her profession and committed to mentorship for younger lawyers. She served at McKinney, Bancroft, and Hughes, and later at Holowesco, Pfeiffer, and Lebowski, before returning to Ingram's Law. She worked with her father in her latter years, and he was and is a proud father. All of us will miss her smile, but even more so, we would remember that hearty laughter. And so we say to the Ingram family that we grieve with you. We pray that God would provide peace in the midst of your sorrow and your grief. And so on behalf of my wife, Burleys, the extended Free National Movement family, I extend condolences to Prime Minister Ingram, Mrs. Dolores Ingram, and all who mourn the loss of this gem. May she rest in peace and rise in glory.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the banks and trust companies payment of dividends regulations 2025.
Order that the documents be brought up.
Sorry.
Order that the communications to lie on the table. Further.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I rise to lay on the table a copy of the Public Debt Management, Bahamas Registered Stock 2027, 2029, 2031, 2034, 2044, and 2054, Directions 2025.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the documents still lying on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, beg leave to lay on the table a copy of the Public Debt Management, Bahamas Registered Stock, 2027, 2029, 2031, 2034, 2044, and 2054, Directions 2025.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the documents be laid on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Exuma and Ragged Island.
Deputy, I beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Civil Aviation Space Flight and Re-Entry Regulations 2025.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the documents to lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers. The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Angliston. The chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Freetown.
Beg leave to lay on the table of the House a copy of the following: the Consumer Protection Act 2023, Appointed Day Notice 2025.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the documents to lie on the table. Further laying of documents by ministers.
Laying of documents. No, that's a bill. That's a bill.
Statement and communications by ministers. Statement and communication. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me too lend my voice to the welcoming chorus for the students of St. Augustine's College present. Now, I'm not a red machine. I'm a green giant. Jolly green giant, St. John's. But it's always a good thing for young people, particularly students, to see its country's leaders at work. Now, we hope to behave today while you're here, but I can't guarantee it. But welcome. Now, I understand there's a Skylar Boris in the house. Who's Skylar?
Daddy just sent you a note.
I just heard from your daddy.
Send everybody a note.
That's it from me, Daddy. Welcome as well. I welcome each and every one of you. 2007. And, you know, there's a rich history of St. Augustine's and the Benedictine nuns and monks.
By the way, it's the prioress's birthday today.
Who's by, who?
At the convent. Today is her birthday.
There's a birthday, the primaries, yeah. But I want to say that that history is truly rich. And I had the occasion to encounter aspects of that history when I visited St. John's University and the Benedictine College, just to recognize what education was about back in the 1800s. The governments we want privilege to access educational opportunities back in those days. And it was the Benedictine nuns and monks that came to the Bahamas as early as 1896 and started planting the seeds of education that eventually evolved to St. Augustine's College, St. Women's College, Xavier's College, and Aquinas College. And other religious organizations took root.
And the Hermitage in Cat Island, too.
Right? Well, talking about Hermitage in Cat Island. Well, Jerome, he spoke of the person, Jerome Hawes, who has an interesting history as well. He is both a Catholic priest and an Anglican priest. And he is architectural and artistry as a builder is well known not only in the Bahamas, but throughout Australia and New Zealand. He built the cottages that the minister spoke of at St. Augustine's, and he also built what I call the iconic Hermitage in Cat Island, on the highest point in the Bahamas. You know the name of that? Como Hill? You all know that's Como Hill. You all know Como Hill. You all probably know Mount Albania. But that's what he did, and so Jerome Hawes has a rich history, particularly with Cat Island. I'm from Cat Island, that's why I'm proud of it. So I want to again welcome you. I also gather today is since the Pirates at Sister Marva is having her birthday today, and we wish to extend. She's at the St. Martin's Convent. We want to extend, Sister Marva. I want to extend happy birthday to her. So it was the religious community, what I call the ordered religious sect, that helped to lift people like us from the mire and expose us to the education to make us what we are today. Anglican Church, Episcopalian, Catholic Church, and I think the Baptists, well, the Methodists as well. But they came along a little later, you know. we had to no, talk about that later in another setting. But I'd like to welcome you all and some of the history that touches St. Augustine that is so rich and is so intertwined in the quest for majority rule and the emancipation of our minds. It's the redemption song.
It's an African bishop, St. Augustine.
He was, right?
Yeah, from a Berber from Algeria.
I just learned something new. St. Augustine was an African bishop from Nigeria.
From Algeria.
Algeria.
Yeah.
And so,
The 4th and 5th centuries.
The 4th and 5th century, so you have a rich history. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, today I have the honor of presenting the mid-year update on my government's 2024-2025 budget, tabled in Parliament on May 29th, 2024. The theme for which was changing the status quo, changing lives, reflecting our determination to usher in transformational change for our country. As a small country, Mr. Deputy Speaker, with big ambitions, we are challenging the old assumptions and obstacles which have held us back for too long, and working and innovating our way forward into a new era, building on the foundations in our blueprint for change and the policy choices made in our previous budgets. This budget places emphasis on national, economic, and personal security. Specifically, this year's budget focuses on ongoing improvements in fiscal discipline, transparency, and accountability, continued progress in fiscal consolidation to meet our core objectives, lowering the tax burden on Bahamians while enhancing tax efficiency and collection efforts, and making strategic investments in vital sectors such as tourism, education, health, national security, energy, and infrastructure. This halftime statement, Mr. Deputy Speaker, provides the Bahamian public with a comprehensive update on our progress under the current budget plan and outlines our plans for the remainder of this fiscal year. The update is structured as follows. I will begin by providing an overview of the international and domestic microeconomic context and outlook, followed by a review of fiscal performance for the first half of the fiscal year and the implications for the year as a whole. I will then highlight the progress made on my administration's key policy priorities. I will conclude with an overview of new and planned initiatives that are targeted to further propel our nation forward. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as we move through this update, we remain guided by the principle of creating meaningful change, change that enhances lives, strengthens our economy, and secures a prosperous future for all Bahamians. Having set the stage for a review of the mid-year update with an overview of our national priorities and commitments, it is vital to begin with an assessment of the broader global context in which our economy operates. The world economy has faced significant challenges in recent years, yet we have seen remarkable resilience. The global battle against inflation is producing solid results, even as price pressures persist in many countries. A sharp and synchronized tightening of monetary policies by the major economies has helped to significantly reduce inflation, while enabling the global economy to avoid a recession and remain on a steady, albeit cautious, path forward. Inflation is projected to continue to decline, although the path to lower inflation may face challenges, and some experts expect inflation to remain elevated for some time. As we turn our attention to the United States, we observe that the U.S. economy achieved real gross domestic product growth of 2.8% in 2024, which readily outpaced growth in other major advanced economies. In the January update to its World Economic Outlook, the IMF has boosted its 2025 growth forecast for the U.S. to 2.7%, up significantly from the 2.2% forecast of last October. Inflation has largely been successfully tempered, and with the Federal Reserve's judicious easing of monetary policy, the U.S. economy has maintained its upward momentum. It is crucial to recognize the impact that the potential trade disruption between major global economies, especially between the United States and its trading partners, what impact that could have on our own nation. The United States is our largest trading partner, accounting for a significant portion of our imports and exports, particularly in tourism, agriculture, and manufactured goods. Rising trade barriers on tariffs could increase the cost of imports, disrupt supply chains, and negatively affect the cost of living for Bahamian consumers. Moreover, any slowdown in the U.S. economic growth, which may result from these tensions impacting consumer confidence, for example, could lead to reduced demand for our exports and a potential decline in tourism numbers. We must remain alert, diversifying our markets, strengthening our regional trade relationships, and exploring new trade opportunities to mitigate the potential effects of this global uncertainty on our economy. In Canada, growth was estimated at 1.4% in 2024, with inflation cooling appreciably back to target on the basis of determined monetary policies. The IMF foresees a boost in economic growth to 2% in 2025, though considerable uncertainty to the outlook remains due to near-term trade policy uncertainties. The United Kingdom experienced a modest growth of 0.9% in 2024, with inflationary pressures remaining a key challenge. However, despite these concerns, the UK is set to avoid a recession, with growth rebounding somewhat to 1.6% in 2025. In the Euro area, a growth rate of 0.8% was recorded for 2024, supported by resilient domestic demand and strength in manufacturing and services. However, with ongoing inflationary pressures and policy uncertainties, the growth outlook for the region has been reduced to 1% in 2025. China's economy grew at 4.8% in 2024 as it recovers from previous challenges. In 2025, real growth is forecast at 4.6% on the basis of fiscal policy measures introduced at the end of last year. Though significant trade policy uncertainty remains. These global trends will continue to shape our economic policy strategy as we place the course in pursuit of our core fiscal policy objectives. We will work diligently to ensure that the Bahamas remains well positioned in this evolving landscape. Mr. Deputy Speaker, across the region, we see varying growth trajectories. Jamaica is expected to recover moderately from a mild recession, with real GDP growth estimated at 1.3% in 2025. Trinidad and Tobago, benefiting from a strong energy sector, anticipate a 2.5% growth, while Barbados, under its IMF-supported economic recovery and transformation plan, is projected to expand by 3%. Here in the Bahamas, we are on track for a 1.7% projected growth in 2025, a growth rate that we believe doesn't fully capture our economic activity, which I will explain in detail later in this communication. While our growth outpaces Jamaica's, we recognize the need to strengthen our economic foundations to remain competitive. That is why my administration remains committed to structural reforms, energy reform, fiscal responsibility, and economic diversification, ensuring that the Bahamas is well positioned for long-term resilience and prosperity. With the broader global context as background, we now turn to a discussion of recent domestic economic developments and a near-term outlook. In 2024, real GDP growth in the Bahamas was estimated at 1.9%, a decrease from 2.6% in 2023. Looking ahead, the IMF projects relatively flat real GDP growth in 2025 at a rate of 1.7%. It is our belief that the official statistics presently available do not fully reflect the true scope of economic activity generated within the Bahamas. One example is the growth in our cruise industry. We have established an intergovernmental committee entrusted with the task of assessing and analyzing the economic and fiscal impacts of the cruise industry in our nation. To date, the committee has reviewed 8 private destinations, and its findings will ultimately be integrated into our national economic data, thereby informing the development of a tailored and effective tax policy for the industry. To simplify, Mr. Deputy Speaker, many of today's megaships have more cabins than Bahama has rooms. Their average occupancy per voyage exceeds 90%, and most of their passengers disembark at private destinations in the Bahamas, where they engage in the purchase of goods and services. The economic and fiscal impact of private destinations in the Bahamas is akin to multiple mega resorts within our nation. In other words, Bahama on water. The Bahamas National Statistical Institute, BNSI, is also conducting a household expenditure survey for the first time in over a decade, and publishing quarterly labor force survey statistics. In the absence of administrative data, such as personal income tax returns, the household expenditure survey is critical to developing reliable estimates with respect to consumption, the largest contributor to GDP. So, Madam Speaker, on the tourism front, we witnessed encouraging growth throughout 2024. Total tourist arrivals amounted to 11.2 million and were up by 16.2% compared to 2023. Cruise arrivals served as the primary driver of this increase, growing by an impressive 20.3%. Compared to 2018, the last normal year before Hurricane Dorian and the pandemic, total tourist arrivals in 2024 has grown by 4.5 million arrivals, which equates to 69.3%. Of this, of course, cruise arrivals since 2018 has nearly doubled, growing by 4.5 million arrivals, or 91.7% by 2024. This is an impressive figure, and when paired with the growth in tourism expenditure recently announced by the Ministry of Tourism, we expect growth in arrivals, especially cruise arrivals, to be positively reflected in our economic and fiscal statistics. This level of growth highlights a clear trend in our tourism sector, which continues to be a major contributor to the economy. The steady upward trajectory suggests a positive outlook for the industry moving forward, reflecting growing interest and demand in our destination. The latest unemployment rate published by BNSI was 8.7%, close to the lowest level of unemployment since 2008, and is down sharply from the peak of 26.2% recorded by the IMF for 2021. The rate of unemployment is expected to remain relatively stable at this lower level in the near term, based on sustained growth in tourism and foreign direct investments. Furthermore, the Bahamas' most recent inflation data, as at November 2024, revealed a 1% drop in costs as compared to a 2% increase during the same period in November 2023. Notable reductions were experienced for transport and restaurants and hotels. The cost of gasoline and diesel also fell by 9.5% and 12.3%, respectively. Inflation is forecast at 1.6% for 2025. I now shift focus on the fiscal performance for the first 6 months, beginning with the provisional revenue estimates. For the first 6 months, preliminary total revenue collections are estimated at $1.4 billion, reflecting a $138.9 million increase compared to the same period last year. So far, revenue collections have accounted for 40.7% of the annual budget target. When compared to the financial year 2018-2019, the last what we call normal year before the twin disasters, total revenue for the first half of the year has grown by 42.4%, or $429.3 million. This was achieved without any appreciable increase in taxes since we came into office. The revenue intake for the first half of this fiscal year stands as the highest revenue level this country has ever experienced for this period. Now, this achievement can be attributed to several key factors, including more rigorous collection measures and a significant improvement in compliance, particularly in respect of real property taxes. As well, we have seen an increase in revenue yields from new policy measures, notably in respect of business license fees and departure taxes. The combination of these efforts has led to enhanced revenue collections, reflecting the administration's push towards fiscal consolidation. The fiscal landscape of the nation is showing promising signs of sustainability, paving the way for further investments in public services and infrastructure, as well as meeting our revenue and overall fiscal objectives. Indeed, enhanced revenues have had a major hand in narrowing the fiscal deficit from 13.1% of GDP in fiscal year 2021, 13.1% of GDP in fiscal year 2021, from 13.1% to 1.3% in fiscal year 2023-2024. Madam Speaker, I now share some of the key movements in revenue. Tax revenue collections expanded by $122.1 million and stood at $1.3 billion for the first 6 months of the fiscal year. This represents 41.1% of the budget target. This level of tax revenue is the highest level of collection for this period ever experienced. I mentioned that before. Now, value-added tax, VAT, collections accounted for 51.3% of tax revenues and total $663.1 million at the half-year mark. This represents growth of $17.1 million relative to the same period in the previous year. That equates to 43.7% of the annual budget target. Madam Speaker, since the presentation of the December 2024 monthly fiscal report, there's been a post-period adjustment related to VAT refunds paid in December 24, but not posted in December 2024. Although this administration, when it's talking, but we shouldn't know VAT, right? That's right. Break it down. Although this administration reduced VAT from 12% to 10% in January 2022, the strength of our growing economy and notable enhancements in our collection efforts have resulted in increased VAT revenues. Now, let me say this. In comparison to the fiscal year, go right back there to 2018 to 2019, that's what you call a normal year, before the twin disasters. Right? When the VAT rate was 12%. The half-year VAT collection for this current year has risen by 72.1%. Amounting to an increase of $277.8 million. Now, the VAT rate was what? 12%. 2018 and 2019, that was the normal year. They can't blame COVID, they can't blame Dorian. Right? But see, but we did 72% more than they did. They higher taxes, we lower the taxes, still collect more than them.
They said it
Now,
will be done.
let me just point this out, right? This positive outcome now, it happened despite the recommendations from the IMF to raise the VAT rate to 15%, in line with what they call my regional counterparts. Hell to the no. Let me put it this way. Let me just put it this way. Let me put it this way, right? Let me put it this way. It was their recommendation. They recommended it. It was for me to decide whether I'd accept it. I didn't accept it. We decided, instead of raising it to 15%, which was on the board. That was being planned. Thank God for the 16th of September, 2021. That's been planned. We brought it down. We brought it down. See, our unwavering commitment to improving VAT administration has contributed to these encouraging results. That's right. Yes. It only takes hard work and governance and common sense. I'm pleased to confirm, let me tell you this now, I'm pleased now to confirm that this administration will further reduce VAT on unprepared food. Yes. I'll discuss that later on in this. Yes. So going down on VAT again, despite what they say. When you Google it now, they say Google it. When you Google the IMF report, you can see where they're telling me to raise some more things. Well, see what I'm doing now. It's only a recommendation, though. They make the recommendations, right? Departure tax collections doubled, totaling $169.6 million. And that represented a rise of $84.8 billion compared to the previous year. There's the tourism. And that's at the half-year mark. Now, at this half-year mark, the tax collections accounted for 70.3% of what our budget target was. That's half. You know, we can do much better than we can do. We can bust our budget. Yeah, that's right. That's what they say. We expect that the departure tax, as I said, will exceed the budget target based on the tourism results mentioned. Property taxes amounted to $68.6 million after expanding by $21.4 million relative to the previous year. Now, this equates to 29.8% of the budget target. It should be noted that the majority of property taxes are collected or due in the second half of the fiscal year. So we expect this number to increase. Special licenses to conduct special businesses activity witnessed a $12.1 million increase or expansion and total $37.2 million as a result of gains in the business license component, which grew by $9 million compared to the previous year. In the non-tax revenue component collections for fees and services charges, mainly for immigration and customs, increased by $10.4 million to $123.3 million and equated to 51.4% of the budget target. Another notable increase during the period occurred from government property income, which rose $13.2 million and amounted to $14.4 million, meeting 78.6% of our budget target. In respect to expenditure, on the expenditure front, our preliminary total expenditure was $1.8 billion in the first half, which represented an increase of $278.3 million over the previous year. To date, total expenditure has represented 50.9% of the annual budget target, which is in line with the budget estimate. Preliminary recurrent expenditure for the period made up 49.5% of the budget target and amounted to $1.6 billion. Recurrent spending increased by $192.3 million year over year. The key spending components during the period comprised the following: an increase in compensation for employees, public servants, by $16.9 million to $434.6 million, representing a 49.6% of the budget target. Increased spending in this component is explained by higher employment costs due to promotions and other staff and salary adjustments during the period. Spending on the use of goods and services increased by $94.8 million to $346.6 million and accounted for 50.4% of the annual budget target. This increase was driven by payments for rent, utilities, acquisition of services, and special financial transactions. Public debt interest payments were higher by $34.3 million and total $335.5 million, which represented 51.1% of the budget target. It is anticipated that interest payments will go down during the second half of the fiscal year due to the successful launch of the debt conversion project for marine conservation, which I'll expound on a little later in this communication. Again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have paid $335.5 million. That's just interest on what you borrow. But again, we are doing things to minimize this interest payment, and I'll speak to that later. Subventions to public and non-financial corporations drove the $16.6 million year-over-year increase in subsidies, which totaled $220.4 million and accounted for 53.5% of the budget target. Further, other recurrent transfers increased by $31.3 million and accumulated to $132.9 million as a result of higher transfers to non-financial public corporations. At the half-year mark, recurrent transfers accounted for 47.4% of the budget target. While recurrent spending for this year is higher than the previous year, it is important to note that all essential recurrent expenditures were carefully planned and incorporated into the 2024-2025 budget. So the recurrent spending, as you have heard, remains well within the expected and acceptable range of the established budget target. A primary factor contributing to the rise in total expenditure is attributed to capital spending, which increased relative to its share of total expenditure. I now turn to a discussion of this increase. In 2024-2025 budget, plans to support the ongoing development of the hospital in Grand Bahama, the renovations at the Princess Margaret Hospital, and the building of a new hospital in New Providence. Major roadworks were also earmarked for Exuma, Cat Island, Long Island, Grand Bahama, Eleuthera, and Abaco. Furthermore, this administration has been exploring options to improve access to housing, including in the Family Islands. Along with this, of course, we have always prioritized investments in education. As a result, major capital spending was front-loaded within the first half of this fiscal year and has been a key driver for the growth of expenditure. Capital expenditure for the first half of the fiscal year totaled $220.1 million and $86 million increase over the same period of the previous year. Capital expenditure accounted for 63.9% of the annual budget target. Over the past 10 years, capital spending has accounted for an average of 30% of its budget within the first half of the fiscal year. This year was the first in over a decade where capital spending has been over 60% of its budget target in the first half of the year. This is nearly double the historical norm. This administration made it a priority to improve the efficiency of capital funding, where we no longer wait until the last moment to start capital projects, causing fiscal distortions. Although we have front-loaded capital funding in the first half of the fiscal year to begin and more efficiently execute projects, we intend to remain within the capital expenditure budget target for the remainder of the fiscal year, since projects have already been mostly funded or have planned funding arrangements. Mr. Deputy Speaker, some of the major capital expenditure during the period included major roadworks, mainly across the Family Islands, that amounted to approximately $36.8 million, a $26.8 million payment for capital subscriptions, inclusive of $25 million to the Development Bank of Latin America and the Caribbean as the first tranche in a $50 million membership fee, building, maintenance, and repairs of educational facilities and construction of schools amounting to $44.5 million, along with an additional $11.4 million for building repairs. $26.3 million investment in acquisition of assets for software, digitization, and government services. $10.6 million for machinery and equipment, mostly for CCTVs, medical equipment, and equipment maintenance. $9.2 million on Family Island development, $5 million in sporting infrastructure development, $5 million for airport infrastructure investments, $5 million equity contribution to the Grand Bahama Health Center Development Company, $3.4 million for the removal of sunken vessels, and $3.2 million on land improvement inclusive of parks and school ground improvements. At this juncture, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in the fiscal year, as I explained above, on the basis of anticipated expenditure and revenue trends in the second half, there's no need for alarm with respect to our ability to achieve our fiscal targets. Indeed, let me stress that we feel comfortable that we will stay in line with the budget and still meet our fiscal targets for this year. All right. The 0.5% deficit to GDP ratio, we intend to meet. The 23.3% revenue GDP ratio, we intend to meet. And we will meet them. As a result, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of net borrowing activities, central government debt increased by $451.1 million to $11.7 billion, which equate to 79.2% of GDP at the end of 2024. Let me repeat that, right? The government debt increased by $451.1 million. So our overall debt to date is $11.7 billion. That now equates to 79.2% of GDP at the end of December 2024. Headroom. A significant improvement when compared to the 1.4% debt to GDP at the end of June 2021. The numbers are there. The numbers are there. Over the past 6 months, of this fiscal year, the financing mix included the following transactions. On the domestic front, a net borrowing of government securities totaling $209.4 million, bank loans totaling $42.9 million, and central bank advances amounting to $169 million. In terms of foreign currency, a net borrowing of $315.8 million in loans from international financial institutions. I spoke about what the interest rate has been and what we're paying, and how we're alleviating that. The government has recently executed successfully a debt conversion project for marine conservation, which is projected to save our country some $124 million over the next 15 years, while also enhancing ocean conservation and the management of the Bahamas Marine Protected Area systems. This marks the largest ever marine conservation program in the Caribbean. This project is done in collaboration with the Inter-American Development Bank, IDB, who worked along with Builders Vision, an impact platform founded by Lucas Walton, and AXA XL, a global insurance specialist who together provided key credit enhancements. The Nature Conservancy, an environmental nonprofit who supply technical expertise to help ensure the project's conservation commitments are ambitious, achievable, and measurable. The Standard Chartered Bank, a global bank who spearheaded restructuring financing. So we have IDB Bank, IDB, we have Builders Vision, we have AXA XL, Nature Conservancy, and Standard Chartered Bank. Now, Builders Vision and AXA XL are the first private sponsors to co-guarantee a sovereign debt for nature swap, alongside a multilateral development bank, which is the IDB in our case, as I pointed out. This project is also the first to be done with non-distressed debt. This project is also the first to be done with what they call non-distressed debt. Our debt is not stressed. It's not stressed at all. What we're doing is ensuring that we lower our costs of borrowing and replacing the debts that we have paying 8 and 9 and 10% interest, and I'll tell you what we're paying in a short while. As part of this transaction, we refinanced $300 million of external debt, comprising $218 million in nominal euro bonds, repurchased through the public tender offer, and $81 million in external commercial bank debt. The liability management operation was financed through a new $300 million commercial loan with a 15-year final maturity and a 10-year average life, which was supported by an innovative credit enhancement package. This credit enhancement package comprised $200 million first loss partial policy-based guarantee provided by the IDB, $70 million second tier collateralized guarantee provided by Builders Vision, and $30 million third tier credit insurance policy provided by AXA XL. And as I said, this credit enhancement package carried an annual fixed coupon rate of 4.7%. So that's what we're paying on a $300 million loan, 4.7%. And when you look at the profile of the debt that we have repurchased, and you notice that we're paying in excess of 6% on most of them. This new financing also features what we call a natural disaster and pandemic event clause, advancing our climate resilience efforts and providing liquidity headroom in case of adverse climate events and public health emergencies. What it means is that if you have another COVID, payments of the loan will be suspended for a period of time. If you have a hurricane and the economy is disrupted, we could suspend payments and suspend the obligations under that loan until we have recovered. Through the operation, we ensured to refinance scheduled maturities at a highly favorable cost, extending the average maturity of the Bahamas' debt portfolio and reducing its weighted average cost. This project aims to provide essential funding for initiatives that support effective management of the country's ocean resources, build capacity, and offer technical assistance. Key commitments include implementing climate-smart plans for marine protected areas and finalizing a national mangrove management plan to safeguard crucial habitats such as coral reefs, seagrass meadows, and mangrove forests. All that is tied up in this debt for nature swap. By improving the protection and management of marine areas, the project will help secure livelihoods, stimulate the economy, and contribute to global ocean conservation efforts. This initiative reflects the nation's commitment to both environmental stewardship and sound fiscal practices. It is also part of the Bahamian government's efforts towards fiscal consolidation and effective debt management, which will further the country's blue economy goals and bolster its resilience to climate change. I want to note that this initiative was created after extensive research and multiple negotiations, beginning with our administration's first big climate meeting at the UN's COP meeting in Glasgow, Scotland. That was in November 2021. That's when these discussions started. I'm so grateful that our excellent Bahamian team and to our many international partners. All of our hard work is going to make a real difference. The funds generated by the savings will strengthen our investments in our environment, in our people, and in our future. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the government's debt strategy continues to prioritize debt reduction, having successfully achieved fiscal consolidation. This administration's policy goal is to reduce the central government debt to 50% of GDP by fiscal year end 2031. We will continue to follow the strategies outlined in our medium-term debt management strategy. Our debt strategy includes greater use of concessional resources and membership in CAF. And membership in CAF is an important step toward this. Our debt strategy also includes leveraging policy-based guarantees for multilateral institutions to reduce the cost of external financing. A part of our borrowing strategy will be greater use of export credit facilities, which are loan funding guaranteed by export credit agencies to fund the purchase of goods and or services from the countries which provide those goods or services. The government, through a guarantee provided by Altradis, the Dutch export credit agency, was able to finance the purchase of 9 Royal Bahamas Defense Force vessels at concessional rates some 11 years ago. We are now proposing to finance the construction of a new glass window bridge through the use of a similar facility from the United Kingdom. This project would commence in the new fiscal period. Further, to strengthen the public debt management and to improve the function of the domestic market, we have created price auctions for domestic government bonds that have been instituted. Cash buffers from oversubscribed securities have been created. Repo guidelines for market participants have been issued. The Bahamas benchmark bond issuance policy has been published. A government savings bond for small retail investors has been launched. And again, that aspect of it, we need to promote more. You don't need to have the millions of dollars to buy the bonds. We've created the savings bond, because when you put your money in the bank, you don't get nothing for it. Invest in these bonds, and you'll be getting, I think, up to 4%, 5% interest on these bonds. You can put up $1,000, buy a bond for $1,000, $2,000, $5,000. So we've created this to allow the Bahamians to invest in these bonds to be able to get a return on their savings. They don't get it now when they put it in the bank. And then, of course, we have an investor website and an issuance calendar for domestic securities is published. There's a website that's been set up that you can go to and see what's happening. Of course, there'll be a calendar of when issuance of bonds will be there, so that you'll know. As directed by the Public Finance Management Act, I now detail known obligations that were still outstanding at the end of December 2024. This information is also placed as an annex in the mid-year budget performance book. At the end of the halfway point in the fiscal year, the government's obligations total $122.4 million, which accounts for 3.4% of the expenditure budget. And the average government arrear payment is less than 1 month. These obligations mainly comprise the following: $82.6 million in invoices for recurrent expenditure, $9.9 million and $4.8 million in invoices for SOEs and capital expenditure, respectively, and $25 million in arrears, mainly for office rent. Credit ratings. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the latest credit opinions given by Moody's and S&P gives the Bahamas a stable outlook due to the following factors, which they cited: a stable economy will support positive fiscal results and slow the rate of growth of debt, high GDP per capita compared with peers, policy predictability, and a stable political system. This administration, Mr. Deputy Speaker, announces an important new objective: securing an investment-grade credit rating for the Bahamas within the next 3 years. To support this goal, we have engaged Fitch Ratings as a third credit rating agency to assess our financial standing along Moody's and S&P Standard & Poor's. Achieving an investment-grade rating requires a minimum of Baa3 from Moody's and BBB- from both S&P and Fitch. Reaching this milestone would affirm the Bahamas' strong creditworthiness and low investment risk, reinforcing our commitment to sound financial management. We intend to implement the necessary reforms to make this vision a reality. To achieve our goal of attaining investment-grade status, we have already taken decisive action through a series of comprehensive reforms, including we have reduced the deficit and debt levels. We are implementing our country's first major comprehensive nationwide energy reforms. We are working to mitigate climate risk and exposure to external shocks using projects such as the Coastal Protection Program and a Disaster Risk Program. We are implementing tax reforms to diversify the government's revenue base and align with international best practices. We are successfully utilizing credit-enhanced external financing transactions to lower costs of debt and interest expenses. We have made reforms to the PST market, that's payment dollar market, to enhance capacity and liquidity, and we have improved our collection of economic statistics. Madam Deputy Speaker, another aspect of achieving investment grade is to demonstrate that we can access the international market without credit enhancement and under normal conditions. In this regard, we will be tabling a borrowing resolution at the end of this communication for approval to access the international capital market at an appropriate time. While on this topic, I would like to announce that we have now engaged, again, I said it before, Fitch Ratings as a third credit rating agency to provide a credit report on the Bahamas. Madam Speaker, as required again by the Public Finance Management Act, we will now turn to a discussion on the microeconomic and fiscal risk faced by the Bahamas and the mitigation measures that are established to address them. Our major risks can be grouped into 4 major categories: climate-related disasters, our SOE, state-owned enterprises, pension liabilities, healthcare, and cybersecurity. They are the 4 major categories where we find fiscal risks. Natural disasters, especially hurricanes, have caused substantial damage, with at least 6 severe storms impacting the country in the last decade. These natural disasters have become more intense in this era of climate change. The fiscal impact of hurricanes has been severe and recurring, causing significant damage to our economy and our finances. We are talking about billions of dollars, with our fiscal deficit widening after each hurricane. Given the severity of this impact, we believe it's imperative to fight for change, which we have done in many ways, including the building of alliances with international partners to fight for lower global emissions and fair climate finance. We have invested in disaster insurance, created a disaster relief fund, and established disaster-specific credit lines, while collaborating with international organizations such as the IDB on climate mitigation adaptation initiatives. Some of our projects include Coastal Protection Program, a disaster risk program to enhance governance frameworks related to disaster preparedness, risk identification, reduction, recovery planning, and financial protection. And finally, a principal payment deferral contingency that can be used in case of a natural disaster. It is not right that our country, which has contributed so little to global emissions, is subject to this vicious cycle in which hurricanes cause rising debt levels and declining economic output, reducing our capacity to invest in the very buffers that could protect us against future shocks. After each hurricane, we must borrow to recover and rebuild, which increases our debt burden. And the more our debt grows in overall size, the more we pay in interest to compensate for that increase in risk to lenders. And I've emphasized the risk of future hurricanes is priced in as well. Our interest rates would be lower if lenders were not worried about the next Dorian or Matthew. It is for these reasons that we remain determined to fight, to continue to fight for climate fairness and climate justice. Yes. Financial losses, Mr. Deputy Speaker, financial losses from state-owned enterprises and undisclosed liabilities present considerable fiscal challenges to the government. The government faces a fiscal risk by being a guarantor for loans linked to SOEs, state-owned enterprises, because the responsibility for interest payments inevitably shifts onto the national budget, creating a significant fiscal burden. We are tackling these problems head-on. The government has commenced training of directors of these state-owned enterprises and established a guarantee policy framework that includes eligibility criteria, credit risk evaluations, and guarantee fees. Additionally, reforms are being considered for the water and healthcare sectors. The major reforms we are implementing in the energy sector will also play an important role, as they will dramatically reduce and eventually end the reliance of that sector on the government. The project, Madam Speaker, the projected, this is another risk to our fiscal strategy. The projected pension liabilities of the government for public service employees are expected to reach $3.5 billion by 2030. And pension and gratuity payments now account for 5.8% of the current expenditure budget. This has prompted the drafting of a new pensions legislation aimed at shifting to a defined contributory pension plan. This has prompted the drafting of a new pension legislation aimed at shifting it. Prior to tabling this bill, a white paper on the pension bill will be circulated to fully clarify the importance of taking action and taking action now. The tabling of the pension bill will be done during the upcoming next budget debate, annual budget debate, or sometime before. The capacity in our healthcare system is a vulnerability that was boldly highlighted during the pandemic. Our people suffer from high rates of non-communicable diseases, such as diabetes and coronary heart disease. And the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization's statistical database has confirmed the growing challenge we face with obesity. We face a growing challenge with people who are overweight. Bahamians facing health concerns deserve professional, compassionate care across our archipelago. We are committed to changing the healthcare landscape in the Bahamas with the following initiatives: reforming our national health insurance to ensure broader coverage and services for all Bahamian citizens; investing in our public healthcare sector by building new hospitals, renovating existing facilities, and establishing additional clinics to provide quality care for our people; reforming our government health insurance program for its employees to expand coverages. We are determined to create a healthier future for the Bahamas, which also has the benefit of reducing fiscal risk. Madam Speaker, in 2025, every nation must consider the risks of cyber attacks, and we are no different. Cyber attacks have the potential to impact our national security, to cause substantial economic losses, and to affect our ability to provide public services. We take the risk of cyber attacks very seriously, and for good reason. In fact, earlier this month, a ransomware attack shut down the network at the University of the Bahamas, which they have since successfully worked to recover with the support of the government and industry partners. As of January 2024, our government's firewall had blocked 75 million malicious threats. As of January 2024, our government's firewall had blocked 75 million malicious threats. It is estimated that the cost of one data breach could result in a cost of $34.9 million. This is why we are investing in cybersecurity, including the following. We have invested in the new Oracle platform to protect employee and vendor data. We have established and funded a cyber incident response team, and we have funded the construction of a new Tier 3 data center to be owned by the government. Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the new Oracle platform, which we call Cloud Bahamas, is a transformative investment for the public service, designed to increase accountability, transparency, and responsiveness within the public service. Another key feature of this application is that it enhances security for both public sector employees along with vendors. In the current system, information mismatch is a real possibility, which can pose a data security risk for our employees. This is why Cloud Bahamas is an important step to modernize and bring better efficiency to the public service. This allows faster processing for public sector employee and vendor needs, which are more accurate and efficient. With the automation and digitization of all human resources process, key features will include efficient communication with automatic notifications, ability to view and download pay slips online, online job applications, simplified leave requests, and self-service portals to manage and meet the needs of the public servants. These key features, driven by the Cloud Bahamas project, will result in fewer delays and a lot less time being bogged down by paperwork. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'll provide now updates on the fiscal measures outlined in our budgets. As I indicated, total revenue, inclusive of import duties and customs processing fees, increased by $6.5 million in the first half of this fiscal year compared to the same period last year. Thanks to better collection and enforcement efforts, along with this, we have seen an increase of just over 5,000 declarations processed, with import declarations accounting for 82% of the increase this current period compared to last year. To improve even more, we'll use technology like artificial intelligence and automation to make our processes faster and more efficient. AI will help us spot fraud, detect underreporting, and fight smuggling. We'll also use a risk-based approach, focusing inspections on higher risk imports to ensure better compliance and a stronger customs system. The Department of Inland Revenue has been diligently striving to fulfill the government's mandate to enhance tax collection efforts. We are taking a big step toward digital progress with a One Tax Bahamas portal, a new online platform that will make paying taxes easier for everyone. We have partnered with KPMG and LTI Mindtree Limited, a technology company from India, to build a simple and efficient system that will help the Department of Inland Revenue work better and more transparently. This will make it easier for businesses and individuals to pay their taxes, improve the collections, and reduce paperwork. By using the latest technology, we are making the tax system more efficient and accessible, helping with national growth and better tax compliance. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's been a 45.2% rise in the property tax revenue for the first 6 months of this year, compared to the same period last year. This rise was driven by an 83.4% increase for collection for property taxes on commercial property and a 77.9% increase from property taxes collected on foreign-owned undeveloped land. Compared to the same 6 months period 3 years ago, property tax collection this year has doubled, growing by $31.8 million, $31.8 million. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are committed and dedicated to implementing a property tax relief program designed specifically to provide assistance to individuals and families who find themselves in genuine financial need. Ultimately, this effort is part of a broader commitment to enhance the quality of life for all citizens and to foster a more inclusive economy where everyone has the opportunity to thrive regardless of their financial circumstances. Over the past 3 years, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the real estate sector has publicly and consistently highlighted a growing interest in Bahamian properties. During this period, one real estate company has enjoyed over $2 billion in sales. Despite such growth, the anticipated benefits have not been reflected in the government's fiscal accounts, particularly as the VAT on real estate has underperformed. At present, the most straightforward means of establishing property ownership in the Bahamas involves the payment of VAT on real estate and the proper registration of property documents. Regrettably, many individuals have overlooked these essential steps, resulting in significant revenue losses for the government due to the failure to formalize property ownership. To improve compliance, we intend to undertake the following steps. First of all, we note that we have reduced VAT on real estate for Bahamians. VAT on real estate is now being logged and tracked electronically by the Department of Inland Revenue for auditing and compliance purposes as part of the government's revenue enhancement strategy. We have reached out to agents to determine, real estate agents, to determine property ownership, to verify if a property has been sold, and to ensure that there are no taxes outstanding as it relates to real estate transactions. Lastly, we have ensured a close collaboration between the Department of Inland Revenue and the Bahamas Immigration Department to streamline the process of economic permanent residency by requiring that all property documents are stamped for VAT and include a real property assessment number. Madam Speaker, during the first half of the current fiscal year, a total of 1,679 conveyances were processed for VAT stamp tax. Companies and foreign individuals together represent 42.3% of these conveyances and accounts for 79.4% of the total revenue from VAT on conveyances. In contrast, Bahamian companies and Bahamian individuals together contribute only 20.6% of the total revenue collected from this tax. These statistics are important because they show that VAT on real estate, as well as real property taxes, are primarily incurred for and paid by foreign owners. For instance, the average VAT on real property paid by a Bahamian is $9,133, whereas the average paid by a foreign owner is 11 times as much, as high as $104,384. The recent amnesty program for VAT on stamp duty, which was extended into this fiscal year, showed that the average tax paid was $7,660 from 816 applicants. This average tax paid shows that many large properties were not in this tax net. These figures really show why enforcement for VAT on stamp tax is so important. The buoyancy of the high-end real estate market should accurately be reflected in the government's revenue receipts. Since the highest level of payment for taxes on real estate are paid by foreign owners, it is increasingly vital for the government to ensure that it is capturing the full potential of this revenue stream. what is owed to the government and the people of the Bahamas should be paid, especially by those who can't afford it. Proper enforcement of the VAT on stamp tax not only helps maintain the integrity of the tax system, but also ensures that the benefits sought out by foreign owners from a thriving real estate market in the Bahamas are realized in the terms of increased government revenue. This revenue is essential for funding public services and infrastructure, and I didn't need to say this, and contributing to the overall economic well-being of the Bahamas. This is why it is imperative that measures are put in place to enhance compliance and effectively monitoring transactions regarding real estate, particularly in the foreign market, foreign purchases. Another initiative, VAT on real estate, is now being logged and tracked electronically by the Department of Inland Revenue for auditing and compliance purposes as part of our overall strategy. For the first half, we've noted that Madam Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, by the end of 2024, the Inland Revenue completed 274 audits, they call it desk audits, which are detailed reviews of tax returns and financial records of taxpayers, which is done remotely. This process has identified $3.5 million in taxes to be settled. Additionally, at least 60 successful field audits have been completed, which involve on-site examinations of taxpayers' financial records and operations. As a result, a total assessment value of $124.2 million in outstanding fees and taxes have been discovered, with VAT accounting for 95% of this amount. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we are confident that we'll be able to collect all these funds. As of December 31st, 2024, the large taxpayers unit established by the Department of Inland Revenue monitors a total of 118 large taxpayers and 53 of their related companies, which represents less than 1% of all taxpayers, but accounts for 39% of our VAT income. We can report that since establishing the large taxpayers unit, the compliance ratio of these large taxpayers has averaged 94% for on-time filings and remittance, which is higher than remaining businesses. Establishing the large taxpayers unit has enhanced the efficiency of our tax administration through providing specialized services and ensuring that large businesses contribute fairly and transparently in payment of all taxes. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we have come to realize that the marine sector is underrepresented in terms of revenue collections, which has prompted the establishment of the Maritime Task Force. The task force has successfully boosted the marine revenue collections. Key efforts include inspection of vessels, recovering outstanding commercial dock fees, and reassessing coastal properties. Additional enforcement, including immigration-related measures, have contributed to an overall $20 million in revenue. The principle behind efforts to boost revenue from the sector is simple. If you operate a business, Well, I mean, you know, I would have been concerned by source and answer, but that's an answer. No. I think you were safe. So that's it, yeah. Deputy Speaker, the principle. When you see him grab the flag. The principle behind efforts to boost revenue from this sector, the marine sector, is simple. If you operate a business within Bahamian waters, you are subject to our country's laws. If you enter into our waters, you are benefiting from our country's considerable and ongoing efforts to conserve our environment and to protect and patrol our seas. And you are going to pay the Bahamian people for that privilege. For example, if a foreign charter enters into our waters, charging passengers tens of thousands a night, they're operating a business within our borders. And their business is subject to VAT, just as every other business operating in our country. Although the government's insistence that charter owners follow the law and contribute their fair share was initially not well received, reports indicate that this year the charter business is thriving even amidst increased VAT compliance. This is perhaps a good moment to address a related issue, that of the placement, use, and maintenance of moorings throughout our archipelago. Our vast marine areas are both critical economic assets and ecological sanctuaries, and our policies must balance the needs of islands residents, recreational boaters, and marine owners, while taking into consideration at all times the need for environmental protection and marine conservation. Here again, we confront a situation in which our waters are being utilized at a cost to Bahamians, but frequently without compensation to Bahamian business owners or Bahamian taxpayers. For example, consider the foreign charter who enters our waters and does not dock at one of our marinas, but instead anchors on our seabed. Hotel and cruise visitors pay fees and taxes. And our position is that all visitors who cross our borders and enjoy our waters should do the same. The placement and inspection and ongoing maintenance of hundreds of moorings over vast distances is a very expensive undertaking. There are multiple mooring sites. Throughout our family islands. For example, in Abaco, Eleuthero, and the Exumas. Those who manage the moorings earn revenue generated for their use. As many know, our government recently granted a Bahamian-owned company the right to install and operate moorings at specified locations in the Exumas, outside of our National Marine Reserve area. However, some moorings were installed before the company obtained necessary permissions, and a cease and desist order was issued. The company has agreed voluntarily to relinquish their leases and to remove any moorings already placed. As this matter has been discussed over the past few days, many Bahamians spoke in favor of improving participation in and oversight of the process governing moorings. That makes a lot of sense. Our waters belong to all of us, and our marine policies can only benefit from broader and deeper public consultation. It is important for me that we have policies which Bahamians can contribute to and trust, which is why we have committed to moving forward with developing a new national strategic plan for the management of moorings. Arrangements involving moorings have traditionally been handled ad hoc, and at one time within the existing legal and regulatory framework. But as science and technology and the climate are all in flux, we can benefit from updating and more clearly defining and implementing our country's policies. We intend to move forward quickly to seek advice and input from citizens, local government officials, boaters, fishermen, marine owners, marine conservation experts, and others. In fact, I read this morning's newspaper some very thoughtful comments from Aaron Hanna, the Exuma Chamber of Commerce president. And he'll be, yeah, he's a Hanna, yeah. And he'll be one of my first calls. We have an important opportunity to update our country's policies with an openness to new solutions. Although, of course, we'll start from the non-negotiable premise that the Bahamas is a sovereign nation. And if you enter our jurisdiction, you will compensate the Bahamians for doing so. And I think I should lay that. This is a very interesting commentary and thoughtful commentary by Aaron Hanna, who is the president of the Chamber of Commerce. I commend his comments to all of you and to all stakeholders and interested parties. And for that, I just lay this article, since I referred to it, I'd like to lay it on, lay it on the table of the House. It's in the business section of the Nassau Guardian. Exuma Chamber President wants successful mooring system at Elizabeth Harbor. See,
Order that article be brought up.
See, Madam Deputy Speaker, we know that they have moorings throughout these countries. And we are unable over the last couple of days to understand who were responsible for putting the moorings in, who would have given permission for it to be put in. And so this exercise will be had so we could identify the moorings that's out there now, find out who is responsible for them, and bring some order to it. The controversy that arose from what has happened has caused us now to, as I've said, to look at the policies and the matters relating to this. Madam Speaker, the government recently presented the domestic minimum top-up tax bill, a critical step in aligning the Bahamas with the global standards established by the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development through their global anti-base erosion rules. These rules are designed to ensure a global minimum level of income tax for large multinational enterprises. As a matter of policy, this administration is committed to dedicating the lion's share of revenue from this act towards two key priorities: reducing our national debt and easing the cost of living for ordinary Bahamians. Our work doesn't stop here. During this fiscal year, before any tax becomes payable under the domestic minimum top-up tax, we intend to table the Business Development Incentives Program bill. This legislation will provide broad incentives to reduce the cost of doing business in the Bahamas. These incentives will not be limited to businesses subject to the domestic minimum top-up tax, but will apply to all qualifying businesses. Our public consultation highlighted the need to align these incentives with attracting investment and fostering development in key sectors such as tourism, finance, technology, and energy. We are also considering incentives related to employment, capital expenditures, training, research and development, and local content spending, research and development costs, the creative industry, and extraterritorial turnover. These initiatives are critical for positioning the Bahamas as a competitive destination for business while ensuring sustainable economic growth. We propose, Mr. Deputy Speaker, we propose to table the draft bill for the incentives mentioned earlier by the end of this debate. Not this debate, but during this year, huh? No, that's the incentive bill. Before it'll be done during this fiscal year. But the bill I won't talk about It's this one. I will be tabling an amendment to the VAT Act This will take effect from the 1st of April 2025 to reduce the VAT rate on unprepared food from the current rate of 10% to a new rate of just 5%. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this amendment to the VAT rate will only apply to entities whose primary businesses is the sale of unprepared food. This will include grocery, convenience stores, and gas stations. However, this will not include restaurants. To be clear, this also applies to the importation of unprepared food. And to ensure it is clear to whom this act applies, the amended act will include the lists of food items that will attract the 5% VAT rate. You know, when we announced earlier the decision to reduce the VAT back in January, we chose April 1st as the implementation date to provide merchants and food retailers with adequate time to adjust their pricing structures and systems accordingly, ensuring a smooth transition for both businesses and consumers alike. This adjustment to the VAT rate on unprepared food will not impact, and I repeat, it will not impact our ability to achieve our fiscal targets, as I've mentioned before. We have worked hard to shift more of the tax burden to those who can best afford it. As I outlined, the introduction of the corporate income tax for multinationals who operate in the Bahamas and who have more than 750 million euros in annual revenue was one important step in that direction. In addition, instead of imposing major new taxes on Bahamians, we are working hard to collect more of the VAT already owed by larger companies. And we are improving real property tax compliance. Our country's economic recovery after the pandemic has been robust. And it is as a result of replacing bad policies with good ones. That our recovery has been the strongest in the region, confirms that there is nothing inevitable about our success. It is a testament to the work we have done in partnership with the Bahamian people. And I want to repeat that because sometimes they say this was inevitable. It was going to happen anyhow. You only had to do nothing to do it. But just look around the region. If it were inevitable, why only us doing so well? Why only us? Why the Bahamas is outstripping all of our colleagues in the region? Just ask yourself that question. And it's all about the hard work that we have put in. It's all about the fact that the Bahamian people partnered with us in getting this done. But, you know, colleagues, I want us to know, I want to remind us all, we still have a long way to go. Yes. Because despite the strength of our growing economy and the job numbers that they are the best, it's still a tough time for a lot of our people. So we still have a lot of work to do. Yes. The lockdown and the curfews were brutal. And we ended those right away. But just as we emerged from the pandemic, we were hit with the worst global inflation crisis in more than 40 years. So Bahamians have been dealing with the kinds of high prices that put a lot of pressure on families who have to find ways to manage all the bills that need to be paid. That's why we're working so hard on our energy reforms, because high energy or high electricity bills have been a huge burden, and why we are bringing an increased focus to housing, and why we are trying to help with smaller things too, like school breakfast, because it all adds up. I think I should repeat that. That's why we are working so hard on our energy reforms, because high electricity bills have been a huge burden. That's why we are bringing an increased focus to housing. And that's why we are trying to help with smaller things too, like school breakfast, because it all adds up. We hope that reducing VAT on food items will help Bahamians check out more of the groceries they need to feed their families. In addition, I would like to stress that this adjustment to VAT rate on unprepared food that has been taken judiciously to provide much-needed financial relief to Bahamians will not impact, again, our ability to achieve our fiscal targets. This is about trying to help our people. That is the hallmark of this administration: responsive and responsible approach to governance and to our people. Madam Speaker, he ain't listening. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I text you when you listen. As this communication is brought to a close, I would like to reiterate the main highlights of this year to date. Tourism is on the rise. Prices are on the decline. And Bahamian citizens have found continuous continuous employment due to tourism and foreign direct investments. Revenue has continually increased, and our goal of reaching 25% of GDP is on target. Our administration's main theme is changing the status quo, changing lives. We will continue to do so by lowering the tax burden on our citizens, modernizing our policies, and expanding opportunities for Bahamians. I want to thank you, the people of the Bahamas, for allowing us the privilege to work for you. I want to thank all of us that has lent their hand in doing this. We could not do it without the cooperation of the Bahamian people. I want to thank all of them, and may God continue to bless all of us and bless our Bahama land.
Order that the communications be brought up. Further communications? Thank you, honorable member.
their tireless efforts, and the Financial Secretary. I want to thank the team at the Ministry of Finance and their efforts, the Financial Secretary and his guidance, and Minister Halkidas, is there, for the work they've done for ensuring that we continue to recover. And we have recovered, and now the next step is to rebuild.
Order that communications to lie on the table. Message from the Governor General. Message from the Senate. Motions of leave of absence, leave to resign, seat, and new writs. Presentation of petitions. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
I failed to provide the mid-year budget performance document, which I wish to lay on the table as well.
Oh. Order that the documents be brought up.
The mid-year budget performance document.
Thank you, Asheran. Order that the documents to lie on the table. Motions for leave of absence, leave to resign, seat, and new writs. Presentations of petitions. Presentations of reports of committees. Adoption of reports of committees. First reading of bills.
Mr. Deputy.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Angliston.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a copy of the following: a bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute.
Seconded.
What?
Yeah,
Thanks.
that's good.
What today's 26th?
Done a long time.
You got it already. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Order that the bill be read a first time and tabled.
A bill for an act to amend the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute.
Further first readings? The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg leave to introduce, I've read for the first time, a bill for an act to amend the Value Added Tax Act.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Value Added Tax Act. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read a first time and tabled.
A bill for an act to amend the Value Added Tax Act.
1 minute. Freetown. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that the business of the House to proceed beyond 1 p.m.
It has been moved and seconded that the business of the House do continue beyond 1 p.m. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The business of the House will continue beyond the 1 p.m. hour. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador.
Deputy Speaker, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Domestic Minimum Top-Up Tax Act.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Domestic Minimum Top-Up Tax Act. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read a first time and tabled.
A bill for an act to amend the Domestic Minimum Top-Up Tax Act.
For the first readings.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg leave to introduce and have read for the first time a bill for an act to amend the Business License Act.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Business License Act. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read a first time and tabled.
Bill for an act to amend the Business License Act.
For the first readings, the chair recognizes the honorable member for Elizabeth.
Deputy Speaker, I beg leave of the House to lay and table for the first time a bill for an act to amend the road traffic bill.
It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a first time and tabled. A bill for an act to amend the Road Traffic Act. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Order that the bill be read a first time and tabled.
A bill for an act to amend the Road Traffic Act.
For the first readings.
The first readings.
Thank you, honorable member. Second reading and committal of bills. Committee of the whole. Third reading and passing of bills.
No third reading and passing.
Consideration of Senate amendments. Resolutions. Member statements. Okay. The chair recognizes the honorable member for St. Anne's.
Madam Speaker, oh, it's catching. It's catching. I heard that about 20 times today. I apologize, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'd like to extend condolences to the family of Michael Pinder. Michael Pinder passed away recently and was funeralized at Kemp's Funeral Home yesterday. He has many friends and family within the St. Anne's constituency. Among other things, he was a musician playing in the band for many decades. I think even at a time they had a special guest in 007, Sean Connery, joined the band for one of their sessions. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I pay attention to what I'm doing on my feet, I'll stay away from temptations, Mr. Deputy Speaker. What I would like to also do is commend the ministry responsible for water and sewage, member for South and Central Andros. He responded today to me, so we're waiting to see in St. Anne's if in fact a square section of the westbound lane on Eastern Road is going to be repaved. But that caused tremendous difficulty for residents today to get to work on time. Traffic was backed up beyond Camperdown, and there are several constituents that may be facing termination for being late to work today. So if that patchwork is remedied, that won't be a concern for Friday or the weekend and beyond. Mr. Deputy Speaker, there is a continued concerning issue with the Montague Foreshore Park, where now there is an individual that has set up a tent at one of the benches. This is obviously an individual that has mental issues. That's a public space. The department responsible for parks and beaches should send agents there to have that and any other individuals removed. Also, there's a long outstanding issue with a coconut vendor group that continues to appear there. There's been a destruction of public property by those individuals. An incident report has been given to the Fox Hill Police Station. But if the Parks and Beaches Authority could send agents down there to remedy those two situations, that'll be very much appreciated. The Member of Parliament intends to make that a memorial sloop sailing park, which will complement Montague Bay and serve as a watching post for future regattas. So if we can have those two issues resolved, we can attend to beautifying that area with information boards on the history of sloop sailing and some of the families that have been involved in the past, the young champions of today. A final issue, Mr. Deputy Speaker, relates to road paving. There has been some patchwork done in the Johnson Road area, and the individual that was engaged to do the patchwork is known to me. He's known to the government, the governing party. He is the son of one of their generals, and while he was cordial with me when we met, he's been speaking to other constituents in Bartlett Street area off of Johnson Road and advising them, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and advising them that he's been sent there by Fred Mitchell into St. Anne's constituency to do road patchwork. You'd have to ask the road paver that has the contract. This is the information. He could be the same individual as a member of Fox Hill, but you can ask the general's son who has the road paving contract. He's been sent there by Fred Mitchell. There is a Fred Mitchell who's a member for Fox Hill, and he's telling the people that the MP doesn't care, that he's there extending government money on the member for Fox Hill's request. Mr. Deputy Speaker, that's not how things should operate. If that was in fact sanctioned under the Ministry of Works as part of a road paving, road patching contract, I would ask that someone look into that and ensure that when agents come to town, they're not campaigning in persons' constituencies when they're being paid by the public purse. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Tall Pines.
Mr. Deputy, I'd just like to inform the residents of Victoria Gardens that after the fire with the scrap metal operation on Gladstone Road, that I am in communication with the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Finance, and all the relevant government agencies to discuss the way forward as it relates to that operation. I would like to also inform them that I'm planning a town hall meeting where representatives from the relevant government agencies will be present so we can discuss the way forward for the residents of Victoria Gardens. I thank them for their patience and their support, and I look forward for us meeting very shortly to discuss everything related to that scrap metal operation that resulted in a very devastating fire just on Gladstone Road and affected some of the residents of the Victoria Gardens subdivision. I will keep them informed, and we will get to this sooner than later and bring resolution to a long, vexing problem that has a legacy issue there on Gladstone Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to inform the constituents of St. Barnabas two very important matters. One, for the residents of Oaks Field, there's a issue, a water and sewage issue on Hawthorne and Davis Street. We have contacted Water and Sewage, and they intend to respond quickly. So we will follow up on that, and also to let the constituents know that we are engaged in our baby supply helping hand initiative. So for those persons who need assistance with baby supplies, please get in contact with the office and see how we can assist. I also wish to extend my condolences, Mr. Deputy, to one of my long-standing team members, Mr. James Bethel, and his entire family, Mr. Deputy, as well as, I know it was said last week, and I didn't get the opportunity to say it there, to the Miss Beverly Lewis, who's a staunch supporter of the Progressive Liberal Party, who I knew very well and actually is a family member of my wife. I extend condolences to her family and to the Progressive Liberal Party on her passing. And lastly, Mr. Deputy, I wish to congratulate my aunt, Ms. Jacqueline Popol, who this past weekend was acknowledged as the guidance counselor of the year in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And over the years, from watching when she attended CC Sweeting and then going off to St. Leo's and coming back and working as a teacher, her greatest love has been serving as a guidance counselor. And so just well-deserved, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Central Grand Bahama.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Tabernacle Falcons on winning the Hugh Campbell basketball tournament, a team out of Freeport. So we want to congratulate and thank them for bringing the championship back home to Grand Bahama. While we're talking about the prowess of our athletes,
That was a good game.
that was one of the best games I've ever watched. Very good game, very entertaining. While we are talking about the prowess of the athletes, Mr. Deputy and colleagues, there are still some issues with respect to the facilities in Grand Bahama. We still have issues with the lighting in the St. George's Gymnasium. We also have issues with the flooring at the Jack Hayward basketball gym, where I believe they're not even able to play basketball because of the condition of the floor. So we need to have that matter resolved. Also at the track, the lighting also, the high mast lighting also needs to be resolved. I spoke to the lighting in Abaco, so I'm speaking to Grand Bahama now. Those lighting need to be resolved. At some time, if they're having track meets at night, if someone is running the curve at the 200 meters, they're in the dark, you can't even tell. So we need to have those matters resolved as soon as possible. Also, I would like to thank the member for Angleston and advise her that the student that moved from Nassau to Grand Bahama is in school. So she's at the Mary Patricia School, where she's now settled into Grand Bahama, and she's reported to me that she's made a lot of friends. So she's at home. So once again, thank you very much for your intervention and ensuring that that student is properly placed. And to those members of Central Grand Bahama, the farmers market, with respect to food security, will again be held on the 8th, next Saturday, at the regular location at the Royal Oasis Park. So once again, thank you very much, Mr. Deputy, for this moment.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Nassau Village.
On the heels of such great news and announcement, I wish to also advise colleagues and Nassau villagers that the Nassau Village Community Center will be officially open this Monday, that is March 3rd, at 10 a.m. And of course, everybody is invited. I saw a person's leaving, so I said, I have to get up and say something. Of course. It will roll out a full gamut. It will roll out a full gamut of programs that will indeed impact the community and the entire constituency of Nassau Village. And even on the heels of that, Mr. Deputy, I wish to inform my constituents that there is even better news. We have confirmed a partnership with a nonprofit, and the complete restoration of the Alexandria Park will be commencing in May of this year. So Nassau Villages, more things.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for East Grand Bahama.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, I just wanted to inform the public that we will be having a grill and chill community meeting in Speeding Ski this coming Saturday. We will be on the ground from about 10 o'clock, but the actual grill and chill does not happen until about 12 o'clock. And we also want to take this opportunity to once again remind the government on the needs in Speeding Ski, the school, as well as the government dock, the government building, in addition to Waterkey, the dock in Waterkey. Also, with respect to McLeanstown, the government building that houses the police station. I think this, because of the weather, there was some severe damage to that building. We need Ministry of Works to come and take a look at the damage that has taken place. It's McLeanstown, the government building, right on the dock, right by the dock, where the police station is located. In addition, there is in High Rock, the school. Again, we have been advocating for the repair of the school building, in addition to the seawall that is required. I also wanted to thank BTC. After I spoke on the last occasion, BTC did respond, and that they are now looking at improving the situation in High Rock. So I do want to thank them for reaching out and responding, as well as the school building that still needs repairs in the Freetown area as well. So we just wanted to remind the public that we will be in Speeding Ski this coming Saturday. We'll be walking throughout the community, but we will also be having a grill and chill at Speeding Ski at 12 o'clock this coming Saturday. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Long Island.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. Mr. Deputy, I want to inform the people of Long Island that at present, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism and Investment is headed to Long Island. He and I met earlier, and he is going to be sharing with Long Islanders details about the impending construction of our new international airport. I welcome that. My understanding is that he's also going to be meeting with local government and local heads of department of various government agencies this afternoon. Mr. Deputy, I also want to extend condolences to the family of Mr. George Constantakis, who I understand was found dead a short while ago at home. Mr. Constantakis is a known business person in Long Island, comes from a business-oriented family. I know that's a blow to the community of Pettius, and certainly they own the fish house, a number of fishing boats, et cetera, et cetera. And so I extend my condolences to that family. Mr. Deputy, lastly, we're going to have a number of events, upcoming events, community events on the island. And so I encourage Long Islanders to stay tuned to our pages and to social media for those updates. Thank you, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Golden Gates.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I want to first begin by giving birthday greetings to a number of my constituents in Golden Gates. Ms. Crystal Reckley, Ms. Glenda Lang, Duran Sanders, who is in Atlanta but is a Golden Gates constituent, Debbie Humes, and today celebrating is also Nicola Hudson. And we also have celebrating today, Mr. Deputy, our Deputy Chair of the Progressive Liberal Party, who is, or former Deputy Chair, Ms. Robin Lines. We want to wish them all happy birthday. Want to wish get well blessings to Cleveland Nemore, who's a resident of Golden Gates, and condolences to the family of Wayne Newman, and also to Deacon Sylvia Taylor on the passing of her husband, Jeffrey Taylor. May their souls rest in peace and rise in glory. Want to give a special thank you to the Minister of Works, who is here present, and his team on behalf of the Golden Gates constituents for the paving work that has been completed on Lobster Avenue and Bamboo Crest. The residents are very grateful and say they see and feel the work of our administration throughout the country, but of course, in particular, they're grateful to be able to touch and feel this work in Golden Gates. Thank you to the hard-working Golden Gates captains and team members who also always make sure that our residents feel my presence even when I'm not physically on island, and I'm getting lots of great comments regarding the cleanups. We see a proliferation of dumping, and grateful to the Department of Environmental Health and Urban Renewal who continue to work with the Golden Gates constituency in ensuring that we are keeping the area clean and encouraging residents to also do the same. We have a number of upcoming events in Golden Gates. Our legal aid clinic is coming up on the 15th of March, but I encourage residents to stay connected to our usual social media platforms for all of the exciting initiatives that are planned for this entire year in Golden Gates. But finally, Mr. Deputy, I want to invite everyone, all present in these chambers and out, to Golden Gates tonight at the Sybil Strawn Primary School at 6:30 p.m., where we'll be hosting our monthly branch meeting. I am happy to have colleagues such as Freetown, Tall Pines, Garden Hills join us. But most importantly, we have a special guest, the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador will be joining us. And we look forward to welcoming our Honorable Prime Minister this evening. We encourage all supporters and those who would like to be supporters to come out tonight to Sybil Strawn Primary in Golden Gates and join us for our branch meeting. So, Deputy, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Appointments of select committees. Instructions to select committees. Discharge of select committees. Notices for future meetings.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to serve notice that at the next sitting of the House, or an appropriate date thereafter, I wish to introduce, I give notice that the following resolution will be sought to be passed. The first resolution is authorizing the Minister of Finance to borrow the sum of $300 million in such currency as the Minister may determine. It authorizes the Minister to borrow by way of a government loan agreements or line of credit agreements, issuing securities.
Honorable Member, are you reading that in its entirety?
No. Just giving highlights of it.
You need to.
I just give you the salient points. So, right. And for approval for the deposit of proceeds from borrowings of the National to the National Investment Fund. If I could have a second.
Second.
Yeah. Second.
Order that the notices be brought up. Order that the notices do lie on the table.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, beg leave to introduce a resolution approving the repayment of all monies borrowed by the University of Bahamas under the loan agreement between the University of Bahamas and the Bank of the Bahamas in the sum of $25 million.
Order that the documents be brought up. Order that the notices do lie on the table.
The Speaker give notice that the following resolution will be put for approval of the House. A resolution approving the government of the Bahamas guaranteeing the repayment of all monies borrowed by the Public Hospitals Authority under a loan agreement between the Public Hospital Authority and the consortium of banks in the sum of $75 million.
Order that the resolutions be brought up. Order that the resolutions do lie on the table.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, beg leave to give notice of a resolution approving the government of the Commonwealth of Bahamas guaranteeing the repayment for all monies borrowed by the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute under the loan agreement between the Bahamas Technical and Vocational Institute and the Bank of the Bahamas in the sum of $10 million.
Order that the notices be brought up. Order that the notice do lie on the table.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, give notice of a resolution to be debated at the next sitting or thereafter. A resolution approving the government of guaranteeing the repayment of all monies outstanding under the loan agreement between the SPV and Scotiabank in the sum of $50 million.
Order that the resolutions be brought up. Order that the resolutions do lie on the table. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
And, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I renew all other notices in the name of the government.
Adjournment. The chair recognizes the honorable member for Freetown.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that the House on its rising do adjourn to the Wednesday, the 5th of March at 10 a.m.
It has been moved and seconded that the House at its rising do adjourn to March the 5th at 10 a.m. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Final adjournment.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I move that the House now do adjourn to Wednesday, the 5th of March at 10 a.m.
It has been moved and seconded that the House do now adjourn. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The House stands adjourned to March 5th at 10 a.m.